Apparently last week, a bunch of people in the comments told me that I should say Teigu instead of Imperial Arms. Now, I'm going to take a quick guess and say that most likely Teigu is the Japanese pronunciation of Imperial Arms. But I want to ask, what's the problem with saying Imperial Arms? Is it a bad translation? Is it a mistranslation that it doesn't actually mean Teigu? I mean, that's the thing I'm asking right now, because I saw a bunch of comments saying that. So anyways, besides that, this episode reveals really important details on the course of this series. Now, there's really two big things that were revealed this episode. For one thing, I want to start off at the beginning. We find out that there's 48 different Imperial Arms, or Teigus, whatever you want to call it, and there's 48 that was made 1,000 years ago by this ruler, this emperor. He made it because he knows that he was going to die soon, and so he wanted to leave on a legacy to where he could protect his people, and so he gathered all these mythological beasts and different things like this, and formed these materials into these Teigus. So, right there shows you how these, weapons were formed. Really interesting the way they were introduced, and I like the way they explained all the different powers about the Teigus. For instance, each individual Teigu is different from each other. I don't think there's any individual Teigu that is the same to the other one, and so there's 48 different people with individual different powers with their weapons. Now, here's the thing, okay? Now, supposedly the way they made these was using rare minerals, gems, and materials and stuff like that from all sorts of beasts and demons across the entire world, and so I wonder if they can manufacture, Teigus again. I wonder if that's possible, because if they can make them in the past 1,000 years ago, and with technology advancing, it might be possible to make a new version of them. It might not be as strong, but I feel like they have to make a new version, because, there's 48 enemies, okay? And judging by how this is a shonen, 48 enemies, actually, they can go through that many enemies fast, honestly, in a series, and so they're probably going to eventually have to make some form of artificial Teigu to be able to add in more enemies. That's what I want to say now, or mix up the entire plot. It could definitely mix up the plot, having an arc centered around, making artificial Teigus. But that's not the main point. The main point of this episode is showing that each individual Teigu has their own strengths, values, and different things they can possibly do, and that's really cool. For instance, we find out that Knuckle 2.0 can go invisible if he's near material that's just like his armor's material, his Teigu's material. So I like that a lot. Now, at the end of this episode, the big thing we find out is that Kurumi, she is Akame's sister. We knew about Akame's sister a little bit ago, a couple episodes back, but with this, we get to see her face in an older version, and at the same time, we get to see that supposedly Akame used to love her. So, I want to take this wordplay that Akame said in this episode and say most likely she's dead. Or supposedly she's dead in Akame's eyes, because, that seems to only be the logical reason why she would say that, or they hate each other. One or the other, okay? But the big thing here is this episode was rather simple if you think about it. The main point is introducing the Teigus, getting to see their powers, and then we find out about the Zank, the executioner, hopefully I said his name right. We find out about him, and you have Tatsumi and Akame going to hunt him down to kill him. So, it's pretty much the same thing we've seen these past couple episodes of going to kill the villain, but I'm not putting the episode down for that. But the episode is rather basic. The main point this episode goes to serve is showing that Teigus versus Teigus are going to happen, and that it's going to be a serious battle, because when two Teigus fight each other, most likely one of them are going to end up dead. That's exactly what was told this episode, and so it shows you what's at stake. For instance, we find out this episode, okay, about Akame's entire sword, her sword's Teigu's ability. For instance, if it does one, little cut on your skin, doesn't matter how small it is, it's a mortal wound and it will kill you. And so, Tatsumi fought back in this episode like, oh my god, because he remembers he almost got stabbed. He was so close to dying. If you think about this, he was so fucking close to death. Finding out about this information was extremely crazy, and at the same time, I am enjoying the reveals, and I'm enjoying the different powers that are being introduced. Now, the episode overall, I loved it. It was a really good episode. It was solid, it had good animation, and oh yes, speaking of the animation, I want to bring something up, okay? A lot of people have been, arguing about the animation, probably saying it's bad. I can agree about these still frames. I understand still frames annoy the shit out of people, and it annoys the shit out of me. But the way they, do the still frames, it looks really badass. I like the way they make the demonic-looking faces and stuff. It really has emotion in those still frames. You can feel the emotion from it. And I think that's what truly matters. And honestly, at the end of the day, if that's the only thing you can really complain about is still frames, I don't see what's the problem with Akame got killed, because this series so far has been very good. It's definitely not my favorite of this anime season, I want to be honest there, but it is a very good series. It's very solid. It's being adapted probably by White Fox, because I did a comparison review on the first 3 chapters, and I was just absolutely fucking floored of how this is being adapted. I mean, literally sticking panel by panel so far from what I've read of the manga, and so I was shocked. I really was. And so I personally believe that this anime is just going to get better and better. If it sticks to the plot, if I hope it is, I don't know if this, episode is adapted properly, but if it does stick to the manga, I have a strong bet that this anime most likely will be probably one of the top anime of the season. For instance, it's already top, but it might be number one. I don't know, but it's possible. It's very possible if they follow the manga. Now, I want to talk about the atmosphere this episode gave off. The music really helps out this series. It really does. And it really gives it that vibe of darkness, deceit, deception, getting to see, greed and lust in people and how, they're villainous. For instance, seeing how Zank the Executioner was introduced this episode with that music was really fucking creepy, especially that entire scene when you see him rip off that girl's head and all that, and she's like, I mean, I was like, whoa, it was really good. The scenes in this episode, I think, were executed properly. I understand what was going on, and the pacing, honestly, to me, didn't feel fast. It felt like a solid-paced episode. It didn't feel too slow, it didn't feel too fast. It's, relaying the information I honestly should know, and it's actually giving it to me to where I can understand it, so I think the anime is doing its job. The animation looked good in my eyes, besides the still frames, which people can, complain about, but I mean, I like the still frames for what they show, and so, personally, good episode of Akame ga Kill. I loved it. It was a good episode all around. It had my hype to it. I love the ending song, love the opening song, love the music, love the atmosphere. I love finding out these different reveals. So, everybody, tell me your thoughts about this episode. Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? What's your favorite moments about it? And what do you feel about Kuromi's, Akame's sister at the end of this episode? For instance, do you think she's still alive? Do you think she's dead? I mean, do you think that she supposedly has a grudge against Akame? I mean, we really don't know much about it. We don't know if they're technically one of them's dead or not. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love all of you so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.